Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News Program live from Algiers. To the headlines. In the first visit by US President to China in 9 years, Trump is in Beijing to attend a summit with his counterpart Xi Jinping to discuss numerous and thorny issues. Trump says he will ask Xi to open China to American companies, and Beijing welcomes Trump and affirms its readiness to expand cooperation and overcome differences. In developments in the Middle East conflict, Tehran emphasizes that Washington's threat and lack of trust are obstacles to ending the war. The Iranian army says it will not allow American weapons to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and Trump confirms that stopping the Iranian nuclear project is more important than the economic suffering of Americans. In Lebanon, martyrs in a new bloody bombardment of various areas in the south, Hezbollah announced the bombing of vehicles and gatherings of occupation soldiers, and Naim Qassem affirmed that Lebanon is facing a savage Israeli enemy that seeks expansion and occupation. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune received the Somali Minister of Interior and Federal Affairs, who praises Algeria's leading role in supporting African and Arab issues. Details shortly. Hello and welcome back to the details of our program. First up in our news, US President Donald Trump arrived in Beijing on Wednesday for a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss trade, Iran, Taiwan and other issues. The visit is the first trip of a US president to China since November 2017. Tech leaders including Jensen Huang, Elon Musk and Tim Cook joined the trip, highlighting the focus on business and trade. China welcomed US President Donald Trump ahead of his arrival in Beijing on Wednesday to hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gu Jiakun said China is ready to work with the United States to expand cooperation and iron out differences.
Heads of state diplomacy play an irreplaceable guiding role in China-US relations. China welcomes President Trump's state visit to China. During the visit, the two heads of state will exchange in-depth view on major issues on China-US relations, as well as on world peace and development. China is willing to work with the US to uphold the spirit of equality, respect and mutual benefit, to expand cooperation, manage differences, and inject greater stability and certainty into a turbulent and changing world.
US President Donald Trump said he will hold extensive talks on the Iran war during a key summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping, with Iran expected to be a central topic before leaving the White House on Tuesday. Trump said Washington and Beijing agree on the Iran issue, adding that the United States has significant control over Iran.
Well, I think number one, we're going to have a long talk about it. I think he's been relatively good, to be honest with you. You look at the blockade, no problems. They get a lot of their oil from that area. We've had no problem, and he's been a friend of mine. He's been somebody that we get along with. And I think you're going to see that good things are going to happen. This is going to be a very exciting trip. A lot of good things are going to happen.
Trump added that he does not believe he needs Chinese President Xi Jinping's help on the Iran issue, saying Iran must do the right thing or the United States would finish the job.
I don't think we need any help with Iran, to be honest with you. They're defeated militarily, and they'll either do the right thing or we'll finish the job. I have a great relationship with President Xi, and I think it's going to remain that way. We have a lot of things to discuss. I wouldn't say Iran is one of them, to be honest with you, because we have Iran very much under control. We're doing very well with China, and working with China has been very good. So we look forward to it. As you know, President Xi will be coming here toward the end of the year, so that'll be exciting too. I only wish we had the ballroom finished. The ballroom is right on budget and ahead of schedule.
US President Donald Trump said Tuesday he will ask Chinese President Xi Jinping to open up China to American companies during their summit this week. Speaking about the US business leaders traveling with him, Trump said he wants China to be opened so these great people can help boost the country's growth.
I will be asking President Xi, a leader of extraordinary distinction, to open up China so that these brilliant people can work their magic and help bring the People's Republic on an even higher level. In fact, I promise that when we are together, which will be in a matter of hours, I will make that my very first request.
US President Donald Trump arrived tonight in Beijing for a high-stakes summit with Xi Jinping, marking a rare direct meeting between the two leaders. Both sides are seeking limited practical gains as tensions persist over trade, technology and global influence. The talks reflect a cautious effort to manage competition and prevent further strain in an already tense relationship. Nabil Khazini has the full report.
The wheels of Air Force One touched the runway in Beijing just after sunset, beneath a sky heavy with spring haze and geopolitical expectation. For the first time in nearly a decade, an American president had returned to Chinese soil, not to celebrate a new era of partnership, but to manage a relationship that has grown too important to fail and too fractured to fully repair. Donald Trump stepped into the runway with familiar confidence, carefully choreographed ceremony, and the kind of symbolism both capitals still understand very well. But behind the formal smiles and diplomatic language, this visit begins under the shadow of strategic distrust, because Washington and Beijing are no longer simply competitors. They are rivals tied together by trade, technology, finance, and global stability. Two powers attempting to reduce dependence on one another without triggering a rupture neither side can afford, and that delicate balance now defines the Trump-Xi summit. The expectations surrounding the meeting are internationally modest. No historic breakthrough is anticipated. No dramatic reset appears likely. For President Xi Jinping, the priorities are clear. Beijing wants relief from American tariffs and technology restrictions. Chinese officials are also expected to push Trump for softer language on Taiwan, an issue that remains among the most sensitive fault lines in US-China relations. If Trump leaves Beijing, having reduced tensions, avoided confrontation over Taiwan, secured modest economic commitments, and kept communication channels open, many in Washington may quietly consider the visit a success, because at this stage in US-China relations, stability itself has become a strategic achievement. And tonight in Beijing, beneath the lights of the Great Hall of the People and the carefully managed spectacle of state diplomacy, both sides appear aware of the same uncomfortable truth. Neither power fully trusts the other, but neither can afford to stop talking. Instead, both leaders arrive seeking tactical gains in a relationship increasingly marked by caution, pressure, and leverage.
China urged countries attending the Copenhagen Democracy Summit to respect the One China principle and stop giving a platform to what it called pro-Taiwan independence groups. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gu Jiakun said the summit is driven by ideological bias and criticized organizers for inviting pro-independence voices from Taiwan, calling it a serious violation of the One China principle. Chinese and US delegations held what Beijing described as frank and constructive trade talks in South Korea on Wednesday, ahead of US President Donald Trump's visit to China. According to Chinese state media, the talks took place at Incheon Airport near Seoul before Trump's meetings with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing on Thursday and Friday. China's Commerce Ministry said Vice Premier He Lifeng and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent discussed trade, economic issues, and stronger practical cooperation between the two countries. Iranian Foreign Ministry Abbas Araghchi said U.S. threats and a lack of trust in Washington are the main obstacles to ending the war and reaching a political agreement during a meeting in Tehran with Norwegian Deputy Foreign Minister Andreas Motzfeldt Kravik. Araghchi said the current situation or the current tensions in the Strait of Hormuz stem from what he described as American and Israeli military aggression against Iran. He accused Washington and Tel Aviv of escalating regional tensions and said continued U.S. pressure is blocking diplomatic solutions. Iran said it will no longer allow U.S. weapons shipment to pass through the Strait of Hormuz to reach military bases in the region. Speaking at a memorial ceremony in Mashhad for former Iranian Armed Forces Chief Abdurrahim Mousavi, Iranian Army spokesperson Mohammad Akrami Nia warned that Iran would respond with maximum force if the enemy makes what he called a mistake.
Today, the doctrine of our armed forces is offensive, meaning that if the enemy makes a mistake, we will respond with the strongest possible force. This approach was demonstrated in the last war. We will no longer allow U.S. weapons to pass through the Strait of Hormuz to reach bases in the region. Anyone wishing to cross the strait must be under the supervision of the Iranian armed forces.
The Iranian army spokesperson Mohammad Akrami Nia also claimed that Iran has strategic control over the Strait of Hormuz, saying this would strengthen Iran's oversight and sovereignty in the region and could generate revenues exceeding the country's oil income.
Today, the Strait of Hormuz is under the strategic control of the Iranian armed forces. The western side of the strait is controlled by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, while the eastern side is controlled by the Army Navy. This coordinated and integrated control will, besides strengthening Iran's control and sovereignty over the region, will also generate revenues for the country that are up to double its oil revenues.
Iran said it is not in a naval war with the US, but is enforcing a smart blockade in an ongoing asymmetric conflict. According to Mehr news agency, Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval official Saeed Sayah Sarani said tankers need Iran's permission to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, warning the Gulf could become a mass grave for US forces if the United States and President Donald Trump make a mistake. US President Donald Trump said the financial difficulties faced by Americans do not influence his decisions and efforts to negotiate an end to the conflict with Iran. He added that his top priority is preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about American financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. You cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. That's the only thing.
Iran said it has the right to use peaceful nuclear energy as long as it remains a member of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said the US has not been able to accept Iran's proposal at this stage, adding that Tehran will reassesses the situation through Pakistani mediators. At least 12 Lebanese people, including 2 children, were killed and others wounded in Zionist airstrikes across southern Lebanon, according to Lebanon's national news agency, citing the Health Ministry's Emergency Operations Center. Zionist airstrikes hit several areas, including Barja, Jiyah, and Sadayit near Sidon, killing 9 people, including children, and injuring others. Additional strikes on vehicles in Al-Maliyah and Shaytahiyya and Nakura killed 3 more people. The death toll from Zionist strikes in Lebanon over the past 24 hours has risen to 14 killed and 56 injured across several areas in the south. Lebanon's Health Ministry Emergency Operations Center also reported that since March 2nd, a total of 2,896 people have been killed and 8,824 wounded due to the renewed Zionist attacks. Hezbollah said it targeted Israeli soldiers and military vehicles in several locations in southern Lebanon, including Quzah, Bin Jbeil, Rashaf, and Deir Syrian. It also reported drone and missile strikes on troops gatherings, armored vehicles, and a D9 bulldozer, claiming direct hits in multiple operations. Hezbollah said Lebanon faces a brutal Israeli enemy seeking expansion and control over regional decisions, including in occupied Palestine and Al-Quds. Its Secretary General Naim Qassem said Israeli actions are supported by what he described a U.S. tyranny amid global silence and Western complicity, according to his statement.
In Lebanon, we face a brutal Israeli enemy, driven by expansionist ambitions, occupation, and the usurpation of the sovereignty of our region's peoples, just as it does in occupied Palestine and Al-Quds. This enemy is supported by the oppressive and tyrannical American regime, wielding all its power and resources amidst a deafening global silence and the complicity of some of the West.
Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem said the resistance will continue, will not surrender, and will prevent Israel from achieving its goals, adding it will force a halt to the attacks and an Israeli withdrawal from Lebanese territory.
The resistance and its people have proven themselves resilient against the occupation, nor will it allow the occupation to achieve its objectives. Despite the immense sacrifices, the enemy will have no option but despair, halting its aggression, withdrawing from occupied land, releasing the prisoners, and seizing its pretext for aggression. It will achieve neither stability nor any hope through its aggression and crimes.
A Palestinian man was killed by Zionist gunfire in the town of Al-Ram, north of occupied Al-Quds on Tuesday evening, according to the Palestinian news agency and the Red Crescent. The body of 44-year-old Zakaria Ali Muhammad Qadis was recovered after he was shot near the separation wall built on Al-Ram's land. A 16-year-old Palestinian boy was killed by Zionist gunfire during a settler attack near Jaljaliyeh, north of Ramallah on Wednesday, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa and Health Ministry. 4 others were injured by rubber bullets during attacks on several villages carried out under Zionist protection. Settlers also stormed homes and seized about 700 sheep during the assault on Sinjil. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune received Somali Interior Minister Ali Yusuf Hosh, who carried a message from the President of Somalia. The meeting was attended by several Algerian officials, including Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and Interior Minister Said Sayoud, according to a presidential statement. After the meeting, Somali Interior Minister Ali Yusuf Hosh said President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud his message to Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune expressed Somali's appreciation for Algeria's support of African and Arab causes and its backing of Somalia's unity, sovereignty and stability.
Today I met with His Excellency the President of the Sisterly People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune. May God protect and preserve him, and deliver to him a written message from His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Dr. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. In it, he expressed his profound gratitude and appreciation for the leading role Algeria plays in supporting just African and Arab causes. It is with great pleasure that we visit the Sisterly People's Democratic Republic of Algeria today, a brotherly country that has remained throughout history a steadfast supporter of the Federal Republic of Somalia and a strategic partner with whom we shared the strongest bonds of solidarity and a common destiny. On behalf of the government and people of Somalia, I would like to express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Algeria, its leadership, government, and people, for its honorable stances in support of Somalia's unity, sovereignty, and stability, and for its constructive role in supporting peace and development efforts and strengthening Somali state institutions. Algeria has always been a voice for Somalia in regional and international forums, and its sincere and fraternal stance will always be a source of appreciation and pride for our people.
Somali Interior Minister Ali Yusuf Hosh stressed the importance of strengthening cooperation with Algeria in security, counter-terrorism and extremism, describing Algeria as a trusted partner and brotherly country.
In light of the challenges facing our region, the African continent, we believe in the importance of strengthening cooperation and joint coordination in the areas of security, stability, and combating terrorism and extremism. This will contribute to consolidating regional peace and security and achieving the aspirations of our peoples for development and prosperity. Somalia views Algeria as a reliable partner and a brotherly country with which it shares a deep-rooted relationship based on mutual respect and sincere cooperation. We are keen to continue working together to strengthen this relationship and propel it towards new horizons. In conclusion, I reiterate my thanks and gratitude for the warm welcome and generous hospitality extended to your brotherly country, Algeria. I look forward to the continued progress of our distinguished relations, which serve the interests of our two brotherly peoples and strengthen the unity and solidarity of our African and Arab nations.
Angolan President João Lourenço left Algeria on Wednesday after a three-day state visit. President Lourenço was seen off at Algiers International Airport by Algerian Prime Minister Sifir, Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, and other senior officials. The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Azouz Nasri, met Ugandan Vice President Jessica Alupo in Kampala ahead of his departure from Uganda after attending the inauguration of re-elected President Yoweri Museveni. The meeting highlighted efforts to strengthen Algeria-Uganda relations and enhance cooperation and coordination on shared issues. Algerian Armed Forces Chief of Staff Said Chengriha oversaw a live ammunition tactical exercise called Pride 2026 in the 3rd Military Region. According to the Ministry of National Defense, the exercise involved a mechanized infantry unit supported by other forces and was described as highly professional, demonstrating strong coordination, precision, and operational readiness. This brings us to the end of our news edition. Coming up next, our special coverage devoted today to the long-awaited US President Trump's visit to China.